JonBenet's family now hoping that, plus renewed public interest and new DNA technology, might finally help close this case.
The JonBenet Ramsey case has shocked America for almost 30 years, leaving behind many secrets, lies, and wild ideas. A 6-year-old girl found dead in her own home, a strange ransom note, and a perfect family image that quickly broke apart.
A handwritten ransom letter demanding $118,000 was left behind on the stairs by the kitchen.
This was no normal crime. While everyone else was pointing fingers and fighting at dinner tables, the real truth was hidden in plain sight, obscured by police errors and loud media stories. Now, fresh, startling evidence has finally surfaced, ready to unravel this case and reveal a far more sinister side to it than we ever imagined. Is this the conclusion that everyone has been waiting for? Prepare yourself, because what we're going to reveal could make you shiver. The mystery of JonBenet Ramsey is finally solved. It seemed for a very long time that JonBenet Ramsey's case would never be resolved. Everyone seemed to be guessing and arguing, and the police seemed to be stuck, going around in circles. Many pondered who could harm a young girl in such a horrible way. The years passed by, and the case stayed cold. But everything started to change because of new technology. This new technology was something that people didn't have back in the 90s. When JonBenet was assassinated in 1996, DNA science was not as advanced as it is today.
JonBenet Ramsey found dead by her father John in their Boulder, Colorado home on the day after Christmas in 1996.
Back then, the police collected small pieces of DNA from her clothes and under her fingernails. They knew it belonged to some unknown man, but they didn't know who it was. The DNA was very tiny, and the tests back then needed more DNA to be really clear and strong. As a result, it provided the police with very little information, which was very annoying. Science improved steadily over the years. Experts and scientists discovered methods to extract more information from smaller DNA fragments. Genetic genealogy was one particularly significant change. This method involves finding people through family trees and DNA samples that people submit to websites in order to find their background. When people want to learn about where their ancestors came from, they sometimes send their DNA to companies. Even if a criminal never sends in his DNA, his family members might do it. By looking at the family member's DNA, investigators can start putting together a big puzzle. They can figure out which family a person might belong to, and then start looking closer and closer until they find the right person. In 2024, the police ultimately made the decision to attempt this in the case of JonBenet. They collaborated with Parabon Nanolabs, a unique business. This business has solved other cold cases and is skilled at using DNA to determine family ties. Using cutting-edge technology, the police produced a new and improved DNA profile, which they then posted to a DNA website that is open to the public. They found some distant relatives, but they didn't immediately find the right match. These relatives might have been cousins or even farther away, but they weren't close like brothers or sisters. Nevertheless, this was a huge hint. After that, the experts and the police began creating family trees. They looked at old documents, birth records, marriage certificates, and even social media posts. They spent many months carefully checking each branch of the family tree, looking at who lived where and when. Finally, after a lot of hard work, they found one man who fit. This man was about 62 years old in 2024. Back in 1996, he was 34 years old, and he lived just 2 miles away from the Ramsey house. He had a job working for a catering company, and this company did parties in the Ramsey neighborhood, including one just a few doors away from the Ramsey home around Christmas. Now that this long-hidden suspect has finally been uncovered, what new evidence has come to light to connect him to that tragic night? Let's learn more. A hidden suspect finally found. This man had never been a suspect before. Nobody had ever thought about him. He had a few crimes on his record, like burglary and fraud, but they were not violent crimes. No one thought he was dangerous to kids. That's why the police had never talked to him. After the assassination, he moved away from Colorado. He went to Arizona, then Nevada, then Texas, and later to Washington State. He kept moving from place to place, maybe trying to start over or maybe to hide. The police secretly collected his DNA by taking things he had thrown away, like a coffee cup or a cigarette butt. They tested this DNA, and it matched the DNA from JonBenet's clothes exactly. The chance that it belonged to someone else was so tiny, it was almost impossible. When they searched his home and a storage unit, they found more clues.
According to sources close to the investigation, a team of experts is going through the remaining evidence.
They found an old jacket from the 90s that had fibers matching fibers from JonBenet's clothes. They also looked again at the ransom note. With new software, they found patterns in the handwriting that matched samples from this man's old job records. Right now, no one knows if he really knew the Ramsey family personally. Maybe he just learned about them from working nearby, or saw them at a party. He might have known they were leaving town after Christmas and thought he could sneak in. Before they officially arrest him, the personnel cross-checking facts are working really hard today to make sure they have all the proof they need. After years of waiting and sadness, this news gives JonBenet's family new hope and a little light. How did the shocking events on that cold December morning truly unfold? And why did the investigation fall apart so badly? Keep watching for more. The day everything changed. JonBenet's death and the broken investigation. JonBenet Ramsey's tragic death on December 26, 1996, is a day that shocked the world and altered everything for her family. Her mother, Patsy Ramsey, discovered a lengthy, peculiar handwritten ransom note on the stairs of their large home on a chilly morning shortly after Christmas. Unlike most ransom notes, this one was lengthy, roughly 2.5 pages and extremely detailed. It requested precisely $118,000, which was nearly equal to John Ramsey's annual work bonus. This immediately gave the impression that it was highly suspicious. When Patsy read the note, she realized that JonBenet was missing. She quickly called the police, feeling scared and not knowing what else to do. The police came to the house to check everything, but they first thought it was just a kidnapping, so they did not treat the whole house like a crime scene. Instead, they only blocked off JonBenet's bedroom. Because of this, family members and friends were walking around everywhere in the house, which could have messed up important evidence. Later that same day, John Ramsey, JonBenet's father, found her body in the basement of their house. She was only 6 years old. Her little body showed she had been hurt badly. Her skull was fractured, and she had been strangled using a homemade garrote made from a cord and part of a paintbrush that belonged to her mother. Even though it looked like there had been a sexual maltreatment, experts did not find strong evidence to say there was actual rape. The official cause of her death was asphyxia by strangulation, along with a serious head injury, showing clearly that someone had assassinated her. JonBenet was later buried at St. James Episcopal Cemetery in Marietta, Georgia. She was laid to rest beside her half-sister Elizabeth, who had sadly died in a car accident 4 years before. It was a heartbreaking moment for the family to lose 2 daughters.
You know, you may be eluding the authorities for a time, but God knows who you are, and we will find you.
The investigation into JonBenet's death was full of mistakes. Another big mistake was letting John and Patsy be interviewed together instead of separately. Usually, people are questioned alone, so they can't influence each other's answers. Moving JonBenet's body also ruined important evidence that could have helped figure out how she died and what really happened in that basement. The ransom note itself was another strange piece of the puzzle. It was unusually long and was written on paper found inside the house, making it seem like someone inside might have written it. Experts who study writing styles could not agree on who wrote it. There were also fibers from the duct tape used on JonBenet's body that matched fibers from Patsy's clothes, raising even more questions. There was no sign that anyone had broken into the house, and no kidnapper ever called or tried to collect the money. In 1998, DNA tests showed that the DNA found on JonBenet's clothes did not match anyone in the family. This finding caused even more confusion.
The mayor of Boulder said that there's not a killer on the loose, you don't need to be afraid. The subtext of that is that a family member committed this crime.
Even though the grand jury wanted to charge the parents, the district attorney decided there was not enough evidence to do so, and no one was officially blamed. In 2003, new DNA tests found that an unknown male's DNA was on JonBenet's clothes. This person did not match any family members or known suspects. The police later apologized to the parents and cleared them in the eyes of the law. The Ramsey family even filed lawsuits against different news outlets that had blamed them, trying to fix their public image. Some believe that if the crime scene had been fully secured and modern DNA tests used earlier, the true killer might have been identified and the mystery of JonBenet's death finally solved. Beyond all the theories and questions about what really happened that night, who was JonBenet Ramsey before this tragedy? Let's find out. Burke's long silence and JonBenet's bright spirit. People talked about this case, shared ideas, and thought about who the real killer was for almost 30 years. Burke Ramsey, JonBenet's older brother, who was just 9 years old when she passed away, was also a thought. He refused to speak to the media and remained silent for a very long time. Some people started making theories about him, even though he was never charged or officially suspected. Recently, after 28 years, Burke finally decided to talk. Now, in his late 30s, he shared how losing his sister changed his whole life. He explained JonBenet as a happy, satisfied girl who brought laughter and light into their home.
The next thing I remember, my dad came and told me JonBenet is in heaven now, and he started crying. Then I started crying.
He also talked about how hard it was to grow up with people always making up stories and blaming his family. He explained the experience of bearing that sadness and how it controls his present self. Burke criticized how the investigation was handled and also stated that his parents should not have been interviewed together. He said he still doesn't understand the ransom note and finds it frustrating that no one knows for sure who wrote it. He supports using new DNA technology to look at every piece of evidence again, hoping to find the real answers. He shared that he wants justice for his sister, not just to protect himself, but to bring peace to his family and help everyone finally know the truth. He also defended his parents, saying they were under huge emotional stress.
I think they genuinely believed that the killer was a Ramsey. Once that narrative had been laid down in the police mind,
and did not know how to handle the terrible situation. He said they were suffering from losing their daughter and being accused at the same time. Burke's words have made many people interested in the case again. Right now, the police, lawyers, and fans of true crime are talking about his interview and making up ideas about the chances of new clues that might help solve the case. Although it doesn't solve the case, his claims give a personal and deep idea to a story that has long been full of crazy ideas and gossip. At the core of this tragic story is JonBenet's own happy life. Before all of this, she was a lively little girl with a big smile. She loved to perform and compete in child beauty pageants, winning multiple titles before she was 7 years old. She enjoyed showcasing her charm on stage, dressing up in elegant gowns and dressing up in glittering costumes. She attended Boulder's High Peaks Elementary School for kindergarten, where she was just another inquisitive, gregarious kid. Her parents encouraged her interests, and she looked up to her older brother. Her father, John, put a lot of effort into providing her with a comfortable life, and her mother, Patsy, encouraged her love of pageants. JonBenet lived in a big house in a nice area, surrounded by love and comfort. She was famous for having bouncy blonde hair and a smile that could light up a room. For everyone who followed the story, all of this only serves to deepen the sadness of her loss and the mystery surrounding her death. Even after so many years, people still remember JonBenet for the happy, intelligent young girl she was when she was alive, in addition to the tragic way she passed away. After all the years of pain and waiting, what clues and evidence have really been found to help explain what happened to JonBenet? Stay tuned for more. The puzzling clues and unanswered questions. In JonBenet's case, on the day JonBenet was found, her father, Mr. Ramsey, took another look around the basement by himself. He confirmed seeing a broken window, which was slightly open, and observed the suitcase under it. Although the suitcase belonged to the family, he mentioned it wasn't usually stored in that spot. When JonBenet was found dead, there was a lot of strange and confusing evidence in the case. 2 different sets of footprints were found at the scene that no one could explain. There was also a rope found near her bedroom that did not belong to the family. This rope was never tested, even though it could have given important clues. Outside, there was snow on the ground, but there were no footprints leading to or from the house. There was also no sign that someone had broken into the house. This made people wonder how anyone could have come in without leaving any trace. Another strange clue was Burke. Ramsey's 9-year-old son was initially reported to be asleep during the unfolding events, but was later interviewed by authorities. His behavior puzzled investigators, who struggled to determine whether his apparent emotional detachment was a coping mechanism or something more concerning. Additionally, the Ramsey family showed a general reluctance to be interviewed separately, which further complicated the investigation. Another strange part of the case was the ransom note left in the house. It looked like someone had practiced writing it before making the final version. The note was signed with the letters SBTC. No one has ever figured out exactly what those letters mean. There were many different suspects in this case. At first, many people thought that someone in the family might have done it. Some people thought JonBenet's mother, Patsy, was involved. Others thought her brother, Burke, might have hurt her by accident. But when experts checked Patsy's handwriting, they couldn't say for sure that she wrote the note. There was also no strong evidence to show that Burke had anything to do with it. Another suspect was a man named Bill McReynolds. He dressed up as Santa Claus and had visited JonBenet a few days before she died. He said he felt very close to her. He even kept some glitter she gave him and wanted it mixed with his ashes after he died. Many people thought this was strange, but there was no real proof that he hurt JonBenet. A man named Gary Oliva also became a suspect. He lived close to the Ramseys' house and had been arrested later for child pornography. After JonBenet's death, he called a friend and said he had hurt a little girl. This made people very suspicious. But his DNA did not match the DNA found on JonBenet, so he was not charged. Another man, John Mark Carr, also confessed to the crime years later. He said he loved JonBenet and told a reporter that he had hit her in the head with a flashlight. But when police checked, they found he was in another state at the time. His DNA also did not match, so they knew he was not the real killer. Later on, some DNA experts looked at the evidence again. They said the unknown DNA on JonBenet's clothes might have come from the factory where her clothes were made. Sometimes, small bits of DNA can stay on new clothes before they are even worn. This idea made the case even more confusing and left more questions than answers. Today, JonBenet's case is still unsolved. Many people all over the world still think about her and wonder who really assassinated her. Even after all these years, her story continues to touch people's hearts and makes them hope that one day the real truth will come out. What shocking new clues came to light after JonBenet's death? And could they finally help clear her family's name? Let's delve deeper. Another attack, mishandled evidence, and renewed hope for justice. About 9 months after the very sad and shocking death of JonBenet Ramsey, something really scary and strange happened in Boulder, Colorado. There was another little girl who got attacked while she was sleeping in her bed at home. At the time, she was at home with her mother. Everything changed on what should have been just another peaceful evening. A man entered the house stealthily while the young girl was sleeping in her room. The man managed to enter without creating a lot of noise or causing any visible damage, which allowed him to enter covertly and avoid the mother's immediate notice. This man went straight to the little girl's room and attacked her while she was still in bed. The mother was sleeping in her own room, but she heard something strange and woke up. When she woke up and came out, she actually saw the man. The man saw her too, and instead of fighting or trying to stay inside, he ran away very quickly. He didn't just run out the front door. He actually jumped off a balcony or a high deck to get away and escape into the night. It was very scary and shocking for the mother and the daughter. The really shocking thing about this case is that this new attack happened just a few blocks away from the Ramsey family's home. That means it was very close, almost in the same neighborhood. Even more surprising is the fact that the two girls actually knew each other. They were not strangers at all. They both went to the same dance school. They both liked to dance and perform, and they even performed together in local shows before these horrible things happened to them. So, they had crossed paths and shared some activities before. Even though these two crimes were so close in time and place and involved two young girls who knew each other, the police in Boulder did not really look into the idea that these two cases could be connected. They didn't seriously consider that maybe the same person could have done both things. They didn't compare the DNA evidence from both scenes or try to find similar clues that might link the cases together. Instead, they focused too much on the Ramsey family from the very beginning and ignored many other possible leads. To make matters even worse, in the case of the second little girl, the police actually threw away some very important evidence. One of the most important things they threw away was the bed sheets from the girl's bed where she was attacked. These bed sheets could have had DNA or other clues that might have helped find the attacker later. But because they were thrown away, it was impossible to go back later and test them when better technology became available. This mistake was a big failure and showed that the investigation was not handled carefully. After many years, in 2008, the Ramsey family was finally officially cleared as suspects in JonBenet's case. But by that time, JonBenet's mother, Patsy, had already passed away from cancer in 2006. Even though the family was cleared, many people in the public still believed that the family might have been involved. This idea stuck in people's minds for a long time because of rumors and the original story spread by the police, not because of real evidence. The Boulder police had focused so much on blaming the family that they didn't look properly at other evidence or other suspects. This focus created a narrative that many people believed, and it was very hard for the family to live with that suspicion for so many years. Now, after almost 3 decades, there is finally a new investigation team looking at JonBenet's case again. This new team is made up of experienced investigators who are going back over all the old evidence very carefully. They are using new technology and fresh eyes to see if they can find something that was missed before. JonBenet's father, John, and her brother, John Andrew, are both hopeful that this new investigation will finally help find out the truth and bring justice for JonBenet. They believe that the real killer might still be alive, and that there is still a chance to solve the mystery and clear their family's name forever. After hearing about another attack, all the mishandled evidence, and the small spark of hope for justice, what was really happening inside the wealthy Ramsey family's home that mysterious night? Let's take a closer look. The wealthy family and mysterious night. The case of JonBenet Ramsey is among the most challenging and shocking cases that is not solved in the history of America. People still talk about it and think about what actually happened many years later. This sad story involves a young girl, a very rich family, strange clues from neighbors, and her parents' behavior that made people think. Also, there were problems between the local police and the district attorney's office, which made the investigation even harder and more complicated. JonBenet's father, John Ramsey, was a successful businessman. He was the president of a company called Access Graphics. This company did so well that it made around $1 billion in gross revenue. Because of this success, John won the title of Entrepreneur of the Year in 1995 from the Boulder Chamber of Commerce. This big success made the Ramsey family look very rich. They lived in a large, fancy house with 3 floors in Boulder, Colorado. Even though they looked rich from the outside, John later said that they did not see themselves as rich. He said he kept working hard and never felt like he was super wealthy. Still, many people thought they were rich and spoiled, and the media also talked about them in this way. On the night of JonBenet's death, some neighbors saw and heard strange things. One neighbor said she heard a very loud scream. She called it the longest and most scary scream she had ever heard. She thought the scream came from JonBenet. She felt worried, but also thought the parents would take care of it since they were at home. Another neighbor said he saw faint lights moving around inside the Ramsey kitchen late at night. This brings up a theory that Burke might have gotten into a fight with his sister over some pineapple she ate, and accidentally hurt or even killed her. According to these theories, John and Patsy then covered up for their son by staging the scene to look like a home invasion. However, these theories fail to account for the DNA of an unknown male found on JonBenet's clothing. So after knowing about the family's wealth and that strange night, what odd behaviors and investigation problems came next? Let's take a closer look. Suspicious behavior and investigation problems. JonBenet's autopsy report showed undigested food in her stomach that appeared to be fruit or vegetables, possibly pineapple, suggesting she had eaten it shortly before her death. On the day her body was found, photos of the house revealed a bowl of pineapple with a spoon sitting on the kitchen table. However, both John and Patsy claimed they didn't remember placing the bowl there or feeding JonBenet that night. Investigators later reported that Patsy Ramsey's fingerprints were found on the bowl. John and Patsy Ramsey acted in ways that many people thought were strange after they realized JonBenet was missing. Patsy called 911 early in the morning at around 5:52 a.m. on December 26, 1996. When the police arrived, they noticed that John and Patsy did not stay close to each other. Instead, they avoided each other and did not offer consolation, which is not what most parents would do when their child suffers a traumatic event. When John later found JonBenet's body in the basement, he picked her up and brought her upstairs. Many people think he did this to hide something, while others believe he was just a sad and shocked father trying to help his daughter. In interviews, John said he thought maybe he could still save her, or that it was just his first reaction to hold her. There were also big problems between the Boulder Police Department and the District Attorney's Office. On one hand, A. James Kolar, a lead investigator for the District Attorney's Office, said that more male DNA was also found on both the cord and the paintbrush, evidence that Boulder District Attorney Mary Lacey never publicly addressed. Kolar explained that in total, 6 separate DNA samples from unknown individuals were identified during testing. Former FBI profiler Candice DeLong believes that the consistent appearance of the same DNA in multiple locations strongly suggests it belonged to the person responsible. On the other hand, the District Attorney's Office wanted to look at all possible suspects, which included the parents, although there was not enough strong proof to arrest John and Patsy. These problems and disagreements between the police and the DA made the case even more confusing. It made it hard to make progress and find the truth. Because of the many mistakes, lost evidence, and how different opinions among investigators, The real story of what happened to JonBenet remains a mystery. The Ramsey family's wealth and public image also played a big part in how the case was seen by people and the media. Many people thought that because they were rich, they might have been able to avoid being charged or treated differently. Others believed they were unfairly judged just because they had money and were in the public eye. In the end, JonBenet Ramsey's case shows how important it is to handle crime scenes carefully and to avoid jumping to conclusions too fast. It also shows what can happen when police and other law officers do not work well together. Today, the case is still unsolved. Many people continue to wonder who assassinated JonBenet and why. Her story reminds us of a young girl with a bright future who lost her life too soon, and a family that will always live with questions and pain. The case remains one of the most talked about mysteries, and people still hope that one day the truth will finally come out. What do you think about the mystery surrounding JonBenet Ramsey's death? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the next video shown on your screen to catch up on your favorite celebrity stories. See you there.